Well, good evening. I am Brian Downey, and I am the principal of Northview High School. So welcome to tonight's Georgia State House District 50 candidate debate, hosted by Student Leadership Johns Creek. At this time, I would ask for everyone in the audience to please stand as we will state the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. On behalf of Northview High School, we are very proud to partner with Student Leadership Johns Creek and are very proud to be a host site for tonight's event. But before we begin the official part of our evening, I do need to highlight a few key safety features that we have here at Northview High School. It is our protocol at the beginning of any meeting, especially when we have so many guests, just to run through a few items so we all know how to respond. If there is a weather-related event, and the hurricane has not reached us yet, but if it does, if there is any weather-related events, and we need to evacuate this area, we're actually going to exit back out the rear of the theater, and we would go into some classrooms that are safe and windowless on the interior part of the building. If we do need to evacuate the building for any reason, we have exits stage right and stage left that will actually take us immediately out to the rear of the building. And if in the event we do have a fire alarm, that does happen in a high school on occasions, it is our protocol not to evacuate right away. We ask that you just have an increased sense of your surroundings and allow me a solid minute to investigate what has tripped the alarm before we respond, and then I will communicate back out need to evacuate or stay put. So again, welcome to Northview High School. Thank you to Student Leadership Johns Creek. Best of luck to both candidates tonight. And at this time, it is my honor to introduce Trey Holliday from the Johns Creek Community Association to officially start our evening.
Thank you very much, Principal Downey, and thank you to Northview High School for hosting the event. Wow, it's a fantastic crowd out here tonight to see this is great. So my name is Trey Holliday. I'm the president of the board of directors for the Johns Creek Community Association, also known as JCCA. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the District 50 candidate forum tonight. And I think there may be nothing more American than what we are about to witness on the stage. Candidates for elected office sharing and debating their points of view and their ideas in order to allow a free citizenry to make more informed choices at the ballot box. There are many places around the world that this type of free expression of views and ideas are nothing but a dream. And so let us all be grateful that we're allowed to do this. Tonight's debate format and questions have been entirely created by these amazing students that are the Student Leadership Johns Creek Secretary of State Ambassadors. This is a title that they truly earned last year after beating out 200 teams in 14 congressional districts statewide to win the 2017-2018 competition. So please allow me to introduce them in alphabetical order. There you go. Out here behind the camera we have Amir Khan, Amshu Shakagiri, our first moderator, Sherry Sang, David C., Eliza Imhoff, Jenny Liu, Nikita Joshi, Sid Balaga, and Suraj Paramanu, our second moderator. Also, I'm not sure if she's still here, their student advisor, Kritika Thari, who you might remember from last year. There she is back there. She moderated last year. And there's also two other people I need to acknowledge that were instrumental in the process of tonight's event. Student Leadership Johns Creek Executive Director and Johns Creek Planning Commissioner, Irene Sanders. and her fellow planning commissioner and former JCCA Board of Directors President, Judy LaFave. These two amazing leaders have given a ton of their personal time to the ambassadors in advising and assisting in planning and preparation for tonight's event, so we thank you for that. A couple of quick housekeeping items. We ask that everyone not just silence their cell phones, but please actually turn off or put it into airplane mode. The ambassadors need the Wi-Fi bandwidth as part of the event, something I hear is not in a great supply here in the building. We also ask that there be no filming or streaming of the event for the same reason. The entire video event will be available, from what I understand, on the ambassador's Facebook page, and JCCA will link to that video in the next few days. So without further ado, let's meet our candidates tonight. We have Angelika Kausche and Kelly Stewart. So welcome to both of you. We appreciate you being here tonight. And tonight's format will be as follows. Each candidate will have a 2-minute opening statement. And they will go in alphabetical order on that, so Angelika will be first. After which, our two student moderators will ask each question, alternating between the candidates. The first candidate to receive a question was decided by a coin toss and will be candidate Stewart. Once a question is asked of a candidate, that candidate will have 3 minutes to answer. Any unused time may be saved for rebuttal. Once finished, the other candidate will have 2 minutes to answer with no ability to save time for rebuttal. The moderators at their discretion may ask a follow-up question. Any follow-up questions will have a 1-minute time limit for each candidate. Some questions have been taken from the audience in the form of note cards and may be mixed in with the moderator's questions at their discretion. Candidates are not allowed to have cell phones or personal electronic devices during the debate. So again, I thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Trey Holliday. It's an honor for the JCCA to co-host this event, and it has been my privilege to participate and welcome you. So at this time, I'll hand it over to our moderators to begin.
Before we begin with the questions for this evening, we would like to have an opening statement from each candidate. Candidate Kausche, we'll start with you. In your opening statement, please share the following. What motivated you to run for office? Do you support all of your party's positions, and why or why not?
Thank you, JCCA. Thank you, Student Leadership Johns Creek, and thank you, Northview High School, for hosting this debate. I'm running to be, my name is Angelika Kausche, and I'm running to be your state representative because I deeply care. I care about this country, I care about the state, and I especially care about the people who build our community. But before we get started, I want to say thank you for one thing we do. As an immigrant from Germany, I really appreciate that we start this debate with the Pledge of Allegiance, because it signifies something that is very, very important and dear to my heart, unity. And I want to work on the things that unite and not divide us. I had the opportunity to talk to thousands of people in Johns Creek. And what I find is an incredible community. We are determined, we are compassionate, and we are incredibly knowledgeable. And I want to use this knowledge to move Georgia forward, because we have to. We can no longer ignore the big issues we have. When I talk to people, people want to hear about solutions for our healthcare crisis, solutions for public education, thinking long-term, and they really want to know what we're going to do about infrastructure. So the reason why I'm running is because I deeply care and I want to work with you and for you to move the state forward. So I'm looking forward to earning your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Stewart, in your opening statement, please share the following. What motivated you to run for office? Do you support all your party's positions? Why or why not?
Thank you. I am delighted to be here tonight with you this evening. My name is Kelly Stewart, and I'm the Republican candidate for the State House for Johns Creek. What motivated me to run for office is my love for Johns Creek and the public service that I have given over the past years. And I want to continue that public service in the State House. I am committed to making us successful, strong, and safe. And yes, I do support my party's platforms. What I want to show you tonight is that when we're going through issues and talking through issues, my campaign has given you a handout tonight of the state's budget so you can understand where we are. We can talk about real numbers and real issues, and you can see how the state has prioritized our spending and where we're going with that. I think it's important that you have an understanding of what we're dealing with at the state level. So I look forward to spending time tonight discussing the issues that are important and us sitting everything out together, because there, unfortunately, is a vast difference between my opponent and myself. And I have to tell you, I think it was disingenuous at the way that she misled you with the motivation of why she's running for office, because on her podcast, she says she never had any intention of running for office until the 2016 presidential election results, and then someone poked the bear. So I want to be real and genuine, and let's talk about things and get things really out on the table like they're supposed to be.
Thank you, Kenneth Stewart. Because you have won the coin toss, you'll be answering the first question. What is your overall stance on healthcare coverage in Georgia? And if you see a need for improvement, what would you propose, and how would you fund and implement your plan?
Thank you. So there is an overall arching need to change our health care plans. We have 3 plans: private, Medicare, and Medicaid. For the private insurance, I want to see us have a free market health care plan that will drive costs down and the competition will go up. That's what's going to take care of that. We also have to have plans that eliminate penalties and taxes and mandates. For Medicaid, my plan would be to care for only those who are on Medicaid. For the low-income families, the adults, the children, the pregnant women, the elderly, and the disabled. And what I would do for those is we need to drive down our Medicaid costs. If you look at the sheet that we have given you with the state's budget, Medicaid is our second largest expenditure, with more than 1.9 million people on Medicaid. Where we need to go is to manage the care for those individuals on Medicaid. I am for recruiting retired doctors to volunteer in the Georgia Volunteer Healthcare Program so they could treat patients all over the state who qualify for the 200% of the federal poverty rate, those that are uninsured and those that are underserved Georgians. What would also happen is that they could volunteer in Georgia's free and charitable clinics, and they could volunteer in clinics that are protected by sovereign immunity. Sovereign immunity means the doctors would not have to worry about malpractice insurance. So you would see patients who are underserved and patients who have no access to insurance who are seeing a real true doctor in a patient setting. And what that would mean is that there is no insurance bills. My opponent is going to talk about Medicaid for all, which is socialized government-controlled Medicare. That does not make sense, and I will reserve the rest of my time to rebuttal that.
Thank you, Candidate Stewart. Candidate Kausche, the question was, what is your overall stance on healthcare coverage in Georgia? And if you see a need for improvement, what would you propose and how would you fund and implement your plan? Your response, please.
Thank you for the question. Let's first see what we have in Georgia and what needs to be improved. We have 64 counties without a pediatrician, over 79 counties without an OB/GYN. Georgia, having a child in Georgia is very risky. It's safer to bear a child now in Iraq. And Georgia just get a D in mental health. Is that anything to be proud of? No, I don't think so. We really need to do better. And as my opponent pointed out, we disagree on how we're going to solve this issue. I personally think it is time that we expand Medicaid and bring federal dollars back to work for Georgians and really find solutions to our rural healthcare crisis. We need to do better in Georgia and care for the people. It is not okay with me, and it shouldn't be okay with anybody, to let people suffer, not getting the health care. Expanding Medicaid will bring back $8 million a day to work for Georgia, which are sitting now idly in Washington, not doing anything for us, and those are tax dollars we paid, and I want to bring them back and make them work for you and for Georgia so that we can help the people who need it. I reserve the rest of the time for rebuttal.
With my opponent's plan, you can tell that she has never managed a budget. We do not have a pile of federal dollars sitting in Washington, D.C. We have a $985 billion deficit, and we're not bringing tax dollars back to Georgia. We are adding to our country's deficit. And there is no money to expand Medicaid. Medicaid is broken, and putting everybody on it and accelerating Medicaid is going to see the demise. Fewer doctors are accepting Medicaid, and more hospitals are cutting services to Medicaid, which proves access to insurance does not guarantee access to health care.
Candidate Kausche, sorry, but you will receive a rebuttal on the question that you respond to.
Okay.
The next question is for you, and the question is, District 50 suffers from major traffic problems. What policy would you propose or support that would possibly resolve this issue? Your response, please.
Traffic is a big issue, not just in Johns Creek, but in all of Metro Atlanta area. And we cannot see our traffic issues in isolation. We have to see it as us being part of the greater Metro Atlanta area. So I really welcome last year's HB 930, which brought the Metro Atlanta regional approach. I think it is a good thing that we step forward and try to solve our traffic issues thinking as a region and not just as an isolated entity, because we are not. I think we have to invest into smart infrastructure, and that will have multiple approaches. Technology will be one factor that will help us tremendously, but that will be only one. We also have to think twofold. We have to think short-term and long-term. Short-term, what we're going to do, I believe that right now the best approach is investing something in aerial bus rapid transit that would give some relief and incentivize people staying out of their cars and using alternative transport. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Kausche. Candidate Stewart, the question was, District 50 suffers from major traffic problems. What policy would you propose or support that would possibly resolve this issue? Your response.
Thank you. If you will look at the budget sheet that we gave you, transportation is our state's fourth largest expenditure with 7% of the state's budget. If you look at a map, all roads in Georgia, all major roads lead into Atlanta. So we need to do a couple of things. We need to improve transportation by rerouting pass-through traffic and reducing local traffic. There are a couple of ways that we can do that. The ATL was just formed, and it's going to take care of the public transit in 13 metro counties by getting that more efficient. We can synchronize lights. We can have interchangeable lanes. We need to construct truck transit routes around Atlanta and get the big tractor trailers off of our roads. We can also construct bus lanes. I am for expanding Route 27 from Tennessee to Florida, 4-laning that, doing the same thing for Route 16 from Savannah to Columbus. I have met with our GOT board, and I have talked to them about the issues they're working on. There are 3 that I am really happy to know about and I fully support. One is the public-private partnership, where they are working with the private sector on innovation and using the capital. The second one is ensuring that the major mobility investments are completed on time. I would tell you to go to garoads.org. You'll be able to see the projects, how much they cost, when they'll be completed, and how much it's going to reduce traffic. Then the third thing is safe routes to school, where children can walk or bike to school safely.
Thank you, candidate Stewart. Candidate Kausche, your rebuttal, please.
First of all, I want to make a rebuttal to what my opponent said about me having no budget experience. I encourage her to talk to my husband about that, because I've been budgeting our family budget for years. I've been involved in several nonprofits and have in one nonprofit, to be correct, and have helped with the budget there, so I do have budget experience. My question for you is, you suggest that we expand massive in roads. That will be time consuming and it will cost a lot. What are you going to do to solve our problems now? We need to get people off the roads now. With the expected growth of the Atlanta region, we're going to be in more traffic very quickly. So I don't see how your approach is going to help with that.
Candidate Stewart, as a follow-up to the previous question, how can the city maintain a competitive edge and attract businesses if transportation does fail to keep up? As a follow-up to the previous question, how can the city maintain a competitive edge and attract businesses if transportation fails to keep up?
We didn't get into the problem of transportation overnight, and we're not going to get out of it overnight. I think we all understand that. We are a state that operates on a balanced budget. We have to do things in priority order where it's going to make the most impact. Johns Creek residents have been paying that 1 penny sales tax that's going into to MARTA and to rail, and we've seen nothing for it. I know from my time on the city council that there has been no support for that coming up through here. And for the doors that I have been knocking on and talking to citizens, there's still not a support for that. Government can't fix things quickly, but you can put plans in place to do that. And I would challenge what my opponent said. There are things going on right now with GDOT where you can see that there are transportation improvements going on.
Candidate Stewart. Candidate Kausche, the question was, as a follow-up to the previous question, how can the city maintain a competitive edge and attract businesses if transportation does fail to keep up? Your response, please.
The response to that is it will be very difficult for the city if we don't find solutions for our traffic problems soon. If you talk to small businesses here, they are struggling to attract workers because they cannot get them into Johns Creek. And they also struggle with getting customers. So we need to find solutions very quickly or our business community is going to suffer.
Candidate Kausche, the next question is yours. What are your views on the expansion of medical marijuana in Georgia as it would relate to an alternative for opioid prescriptions?
Thank you for the question. I approve the expansion of medical marijuana in Georgia, especially with the current opioid crisis. I think we need to find alternatives to pain medication prescriptions, and it also would help with people with PTSD, depression and anxiety, it may have some benefits. So I would approve of medical marijuana in Georgia, and I take the rest of the time for rebuttal.
Thank you, Kim and Stewart. The question was, what are your views on the expansion of medical marijuana in Georgia as it would relate to an alternative for opioid prescriptions? Your response?
Sure, thank you. I support that. We have got to be able to combat the opioid crisis. It is a devastation to society. And it is the second reason why children end up in foster care, because their parents have unfortunately become addicted, and sometimes the very worst things can happen. What I'm also interested in addition to different ways to care for those with opioid abuses, let's look at some natural ways. I want to look at acupuncture. There is no drug with that, and acupuncture has ways of helping people fight drug addiction, get over drug addiction. There are natural things that you can do to help with that also. I think every option ought to be on the table when we are considering how do we deal with this opioid epidemic that is ruining families, it's hurting businesses, and it's just hurting our country as a whole.
Thank you, Candidate Stewart. Candidate Kausche, your rebuttal, please.
I think I would agree with my opponent that the opioid crisis is a severe crisis for Georgia. We are now ranking number 8 in opioid and prescription-related death. That is not a statistic we should be proud of. But we need to do 2 things. First, we need to realize or accept that addiction is a disease. So this brings us back to how are we going to address healthcare, and how are we going to bring healthcare to the people so that they can get the care they need. And second, we need to bring treatment centers and meaningful treatment to the patients. And I think we should leave it up to the doctors what are the real good treatments in that case would be.
Thank you, Candidate Kausche. Candidate Stewart, the next question will go to you. As a follow-up to the last question, in 2016, about 3 Georgians died each day from drug overdoses, and thousands of Georgians live with substance use disorders regularly. To slow this crisis, a broad spectrum of strategies will be needed, from prevention and early intervention to expanded access to treatment. If elected, what would you do to address the state's substance abuse crisis?
So understand this, the Obamacare is in part to blame for the opioid crisis and things that we have gotten.
Audience, please settle down.
There is a Senate report that was just given by Homeland Security to the Senate where they show that states with expanded Medicaid have more opioid abuse, because in Medicaid, you can get a prescription for $1 that will give you up to 240 pills of oxycodone. So there is a serious problem with that, and it needs to be rewritten. There are 4 things that I would do. I would want to give families a tax credit so they could deal with this issue in private. They could go to an accredited, licensed substance abuse center or rehabilitation place and deal with it with their own dollars, and in private, they would get a tax credit for that. I am for funding, my time is up.
What about the poor people?
Any more outbursts and you will be asked to leave, so please settle down while they're talking.
Candidate Kausche, the question was, as a follow-up to the last question, in 2016, about 3 Georgians died each day from drug overdoses, and thousands of Georgians live with substance abuse disorders regularly. To slow this crisis, a broad spectrum of strategies will be needed, from prevention and early intervention to expanded access to treatment. If elected, what would you do to address the state's substance abuse crisis? Your response, please.
I would try to continue what already has been done in Fulton County. Fulton County is actually taking a lead in addressing the opiate crisis. They have an opiate coordinator, and I had the privilege to speaking with her recently, which tries to really work together with the mental health community and the addiction treatment community and the faith communities to find meaningful solutions. But going back to what I said before, we have to realize that addiction is a disease, and that treating is, we have to acknowledge that we need to bring healthcare to people so that they can get the care they need.
Thank you, Candidate Kausche. As Candidate Stewart used up all of her time, we will have to move on to the next question, which goes to Candidate Kausche. The question is, do you want to add a needs-based component to the Hope Scholarship? And if so, how do you plan to fund it?
Okay, I would like, right now the Hope Scholarship is merit-based, and I would like to expand it to a broader student base that is shut out to the Hope Scholarship. And so yes, I would like to add a need-based component to the Hope Scholarship. I think we can fund it by reallocating some of the sources we do have and really prioritizing higher education in the budget.
Thank you, Candidate Kausche. Candidate Stewart, the question was, do you want to add a needs-based component to the Hope Scholarship? And if so, how do you plan to fund it? Your response?
No, I do not. And here's why. There are other mechanisms for needs-based students. So let me get you to look back at the budget sheet. Look at line items 1, 3, 8, 10, and 11. Those are all the initiatives that we put towards education in the state's budget. We dedicate more than 54% of the state's budget to the Department of Education, the University System of Georgia, Technical Colleges of Georgia, the Georgia Student Finance Commission, and the Department of Early Care and Learning. Under the Georgia Student Finance Commission, that is where needs-based students have access to scholarships, loans, and grants. So I want to help needs-based students, but not at the peril of taking the Hope Scholarship away from those who have worked for it and earned it so hard. When we drive up the students and the quality of learning, we push that on up into the university system, and it makes Georgia better for future generations to come. One of the most noble ways that students can get a free education is by joining the military and serving our country. There are multiple ways that people can have their education paid for. People can also work. Not everything is the government's responsibility. I worked and put my way through college.
Before Candidate Kausche begins her rebuttal, we'd just like to remind the audience to refrain from cheering or booing or clapping during the candidate's response. Candidate Kausche, you may start your rebuttal.
I would like to say that we just need to expand opportunities for students to get finance. College education is incredibly expensive. Many cannot afford it who want to go to college. So we need to find solutions that those who want to go get relief for their student debt. Student debt is a big crisis. And that we also think about alternatives for those who do not want to go to college, like apprenticeship programs and anything comparable.
Thank you, Candidate Kausche. Ken Stewart, the next question will go to you. What ideas would you offer to continue the expansion of Georgia's business sector?
So there are a couple of things that I think we need to do. When businesses are looking to start up, expand, or relocate, they want to go to states who are business friendly. I would like to change our corporate income tax to a fair and simple tax for corporations. I want to invest in infrastructure, invest in workforce development. I want to remain a right-to-work state. I want to reduce burdensome regulations, and I want to replace the Affordable Care Act with an open market, free market health plan that drives down cost, that does away with mandates, taxes, and penalties. I'll reserve the balance of my time.
Thank you, candidate Stewart. Candidate Kausche, the question was, what ideas would you offer to continue the expansion of Georgia's business sector? Your response, please.
Georgia's business sector is very important. I'm especially very supportive of the small business community because that is the core and the heart of Georgia businesses. When I go around and talk to small business owners, they have one concern. Or they have several concerns, but one of the major concerns is access to healthcare. We need to find good solutions for healthcare and making it affordable and accessible so that small business owners can actually do what they want to do, focus on their business and not worry about healthcare.
I want to go back to the point of what we were talking about, how we would deal with drug abuse and things in Georgia. One of the things that I would want to do too is to have local, state, and federal agencies working together on dealing with that crisis. I support fully funding Georgia's prescription drug abuse prevention initiative that would work with advocacy, education, enforcement, safety, and secure disposal. One of the most important things we think we need to focus on are larger fines and penalties and longer sentences for drug traffickers and for pill mill doctors.
Thank you, candidate Stewart. Candidate Kausche, the next question is yours. What is your view on sanctuary cities? Should Johns Creek be a sanctuary city, and why?
Well, as far as I know, we do not have sanctuary cities in Georgia. And this is more of a federal question because it refers to immigration. And what I, as an immigrant myself, like to say is that we need to treat all human beings with humanity and kindness, regardless of where they come from and why they are here. And if they come to ask for our help and our protection, they should get it.
Thank you, Candidate Kausche. Candidate Stewart, the question was, what is your view on sanctuary cities? Should Johns Creek be a sanctuary city, and why? Your response?
No, I do not support sanctuary cities, and I do not believe Johns Creek should ever be a sanctuary city. And my opponent doesn't know this, but Georgia does have 2 sanctuary counties. And so I am not for those sanctuary counties harboring people who are here illegally, and I don't believe that they should receive state and federal funding. I mean, it is a U.S. immigration law. That's a federal law. But what you have at the local level or the state level, or not the state level, what you have at the local level are some of those who work against that. You know, I never would have thought that there would be public officials elected to office who would aid and abet and harbor illegal aliens. And so I do not want to see us doing that. And if we have elected officials that are not setting the example of how to respect and obey and follow laws, what does that say that we're setting an example for future generations?
Thank you, Candidate Stewart. Candidate Kausche, your rebuttal, please.
I think we should leave immigration to where it belongs at the federal level. There's only limited things we can do at the state level. And I agree that we need to follow the rule of law. So there are procedures processes and procedures for immigration, and we need to follow those. I'm a prime example of those processes. So I know what the process looks like and what it takes to go through. And I'm in support of that, but I'm also in support of treating people with humanity and kindness, and that we should put the human need first.
Thank you, candidate Kausche. Candidate Stewart, the next question will go to you. Should Georgia recreate Milton County? Why or why not? And if so, what is your plan to make that happen?
Yes, Georgia should recreate Milton County. Let me give you the history of it. Back in the Depression, there was Milton County and there was Fulton County. Milton County had 3,600 people, that's all. So the counties merged. We're very different today. The tax dollars that you and I pay, we don't get a return on those services up here in North Fulton. So you have a county that is 80 miles long and more than 1 million residents. That is not an efficient way to manage a government. And so I want to recreate Milton County so we've got local county government here. And the way to do that is through the state legislature. So we would work with other counties in the state of Georgia. Some have less than 10,000 people. Those counties could merge and have more shared services and more synergies, which would lower our counties to 158. By our Constitution, we cannot have more than 159 counties. And that would allow us to recreate Milton County. I'll reserve the balance of my time.
Thank you, candidate Stewart. Candidate Kausche, the question was, should Georgia recreate Milton County? Why or why not? And if so, what is your plan to make that happen? Your response, please.
First of all, I believe Milton County has been on the table several times and was rejected before in the state legislature by Republicans and Democrats. And before we think about creating a new county and open another can of worms, let's think about the services Fulton County provides. It provides the court service, it provides healthcare services, it provides the school service, voter registration, as we all know right now. Today is the last day, don't forget it. And so it provides a lot of services that are very valuable, and I would say that before we start getting into unknown expenses and that could actually increase our taxes, let's see how we can hold those services that we are not happy with accountable and improve those.
Having Milton County, we would have the very same services that Fulton County has. And it's not going to increase our expenses. We will have our tax dollars right here, and I would beg to differ that our expenses would probably lower. Fulton County has some credibility issues. And so I want to keep all of our tax dollars up here. You and I work hard every day to have a good income and make a good wage. And those services and those taxes that we pay, I want to keep it right here in the northern part of Fulton County. There is not a reason to not recreate Milton County. Yes, it has been on the table before, but this is the #1 issue. When I am knocking on doors, this is the #1 issue people are talking about to me. And I have promised that I would put my hand to the plow and not look back, and that is what I will do. I want to see Milton County recreated.
Thank you, Candidate Stewart. Candidate Kausche, here's a question. Over 240,000 Georgians do not make enough money to purchase health insurance, but do not qualify for Medicaid, ultimately putting them into the Medicaid coverage gap. Many of the families who fall into the gap are hard-working people who work in industries that make up the backbone of our state, including trucking, food service, and childcare. Do you support using state funds to close the Medicaid coverage gap and offer affordable health coverage to these 240,000 Georgians? What solution would you offer?
Well, as I said before, I support expanding Medicaid, which would actually bring coverage to roughly 500,000 people and would bridge that gap and would bring health care to people who desperately need it, that would put them back to work and put them back in the workforce when they can finally get the care they need. Yes, I would support expanding Medicaid to cover that gap.
Thank you, candidate Stewart. The question was, or candidate Kausche. Candidate Stewart, the question was, over 240,000 Georgians do not make enough money to purchase health insurance, but do not qualify for Medicaid. Do you support using state funds to close the Medicaid coverage gap and offer affordable health coverage to these 240,000 Georgians? Because this question is a hot topic, we will add 1 minute to both sides.
Thank you. So, if you'll know this, the problem with health care is not health care, it's insurance. That's the problem that we're facing. And so the way to correct that is not through Medicaid expansion. If you think that health insurance is expensive now, wait till it's free. It will cost us everything. It will be the #1 expenditure on the state budget that you have a copy of. The answer to dealing with the uninsured is what I described a little earlier. We already have in Georgia is set up to do this. We have the Georgia Volunteer Health Program where we could recruit doctors all over the state to treat patients that are at the 200% federal poverty rate, that are uninsured, and that are underserved throughout Georgia. Doctors don't retire well, and I have met with a team of doctors to talk about this issue. So what I want to see are doctors that are wanting to continue practicing. They're volunteering for these needy Georgians that we need to serve. But they are doing so in Georgia's free and charitable clinics, and they're doing so in clinics that are covered by sovereign immunity. That sovereign immunity, again, is going to protect a doctor from having to buy the malpractice insurance. The doctor gets to perform the pure art of medicine and caring for people. So the people who are underserved or don't have insurance are going to see a very qualified, engaged doctor in a private patient setting. There's no insurance involved, and the person is getting the care. And the doctor is getting to work. And so that, to me, is where we need to start. We need to start providing the health care and get the insurance and the government out of the way. And anything that comes between a doctor and a patient, anything that comes between a doctor and a patient is not good. Think about your own situation. How many times have you needed to go have a procedure and you and your doctor are both fighting the insurance company? We don't need to put needy Georgians or underserved Georgians in those situations. Let's get them a doctor and let them go see the doctor. They don't have to pay anything for it, and that doctor is getting to practice medicine like he or she wants to.
Thank you, candidate Stewart. Candidate Kausche, what specific solution would you offer to cover the Medicaid gap for the 240,000 Georgians? And how do you plan to fund it? You have an extra minute for your rebuttal time.
As I said, we need to expand Medicare now, and as my opponent suggests that we should leave it to charitable and private services. If that would be the case, it would have already happened. We are leaving people behind. I repeat again, we have, I think, 64 counties without a pediatrician and over 79 with an OBGYN. If we expand Medicaid now, we can help those people who need it now in rural Georgia. And I don't think charitable medicine will help this as soon as possible.
Thank you. Ken Stewart, the next question will be for you. What policies can you introduce or support to address the increasing population of Johns Creek, as well as other cities across the state, while maintaining the city's park and scenic spaces?
So that is a local level issue. And so I would work with Johns Creek, the city council, on those things to take the city where it wants to go. I don't see that as a state initiative. Here's the thing, every level of government has its role. And you don't want more government interference, you want less. So I want to see the separate 3 levels of government serve where they're supposed to serve. And so I believe that that is a city council issue that I would support whatever initiative the council came up with.
Thank you, Candidate Stewart. Candidate Kausche, the question was, what policies can you introduce or support to address the increasing population of Johns Creek, as well as other cities across the state, while maintaining the city's parks and scenic spaces? Your response, please.
I would agree with my opponent that that is a city issue and that would be addressed at the city council. How we address the overall growth of the metropolitan Atlanta area, that is something where we really think about infrastructure, so that we can address at the state level, but parks and recreation, that is for the city to decide.
Candidate Stewart, do you have a rebuttal?
I don't.
We agree.
Thank you. Candidate Kausche, the next question is yours. If elected, would you support or oppose a state law preempting a local municipality's permitting and control of 5G wireless equipment rollout? Why?
Can you repeat this question? I didn't get the last part.
If elected, would you support or oppose a state law preempting a local municipality's permitting and control of 5G wireless equipment rollout? Why?
Overall, I would like us to expand broadband wherever we can, but I have to say that this question is out of my expertise, so I would bring it to the expert who can decide on that.
Thank you, Candidate Kausche. Candidate Stewart, if elected, would you support or oppose a state law preempting a local municipality's permitting and control of 5G wireless equipment rollout, and why? Your response?
I am where my opponent is. We agree for a second time. And so, but I don't want the state to dictate to cities things that they need to do. Every city is going to be different, and every situation is going to be different. And so I think that that pertains to the city. Here's where I would go. I would want to work with the city council to figure out what is best for the area, just to make sure that we're getting it right. But government interference one over the other, I just don't support that. They each have their clear, distinct boundaries, and I don't want to ride roughshod over the city.
Thank you, Candidate Stewart. Candidate Kausche, would you like to use your rebuttal time?
No.
Thank you. Candidate Stewart, the next question will be for you. According to U.S. News, Georgia is nationally ranked 35th in pre-K through 12 education and 22nd in higher education. What would you most like to see changed in Georgia's public school system to make sure that all our children receive the best educational opportunities in the nation?
So I will tell you, I have seen the best of these and the least of these throughout Georgia. I served as an admissions counselor recruiting high school students to college. Governor Deal has appointed me to serve on the board of directors for the Department of Juvenile Justice. And in that, I also serve as a school board member. I also served on the Johns Creek City Council and worked with our school board, our Fulton County School Board. So we have students all over the state that come from different backgrounds, but here's where I am. I want to make sure that every child has every opportunity to learn as they want to learn, or can learn best, regardless of their circumstances. And we have to abandon one size fits all. I can tell you it does not. And so I am for empowering the parent and the teacher to figure out what is best for that child, what's the best way for that child to learn. I want to see education savings accounts. I want to have scholarship tax credits. I mean, I want to have special needs vouchers. There are several things that we can put in place to make sure that children are learning the best that they can. We need to put a laser beam focus on third grade reading levels because that is used as an indicator in future prison planning populations. I want to see us have innovative, creative learning environments and the latest and greatest technologies. But I want the parent and the teacher to make that decision about that child. They have got to be the ones that are the driving force, not the government.
Thank you, Candidate Stewart. Candidate Kausche, the question was, according to U.S. News, Georgia is nationally ranked 35th in pre-K through 12 education and 22nd in higher education. What would you most like to see changed in Georgia's public school system to make sure that all our children receive the best educational opportunities in the nation? Your response, please.
Thank you. Well, I'm a mother and I accompanied both of my daughters through school, and they are now in college, and I also am a former adjunct professor teaching students, so I know a little bit about education. I think that I agree with my opponent that parents play a very important part in the education of their children. I did, and I think very many parents in this community do. But not every community is the same, and not every school is the same. What I want us to do is really prioritize education in the budget, because it is education is the great equalizer. We need to invest in education to make sure that every Georgian child has the opportunity to grow and learn to its best potential, so that they become contributors to our society and work for us in Georgia. So how do we do this? We need to prioritize the education in the budget. In the last 14 years, there was only 1 year the Georgia Assembly fully funded public education, and that was this year. So we need to do better. I also am against vouchers. We already are number 35 and are number 27. I don't believe that taking money out of the public education is going to help anybody, especially not schools that struggle. So I want to keep the money in the schools and oppose vouchers. And I keep the rest of the time to the budget.
Thank you. Candidate Stewart, do you have a rebuttal?
Yes, so I think that the vouchers are an important part. And I think because parents need the option to have every opportunity and everything available to them. The QBE formula, that's the Quality Basic Education formula. It was fully funded this year for the first time. It wasn't for political reasons. It was because the state could finally afford it. It is because we have become the #1 state to do business, and we have the revenues to support it. And we have put a large focus on education. Those 5 departments that I told you about a while ago make up 54% of the state's budget. We still need to keep it where it is, but we have made it a priority in our state. No bones about it. I mean, that is a priority in Georgia, and it will continue to be.
Do you have anything more that you'd like to say regarding the issue? Yeah, we're giving both candidates extra time.
Oh,
You're finished.
Right, then we'll move on to the next question. Thank you, Candidate Stewart. Candidate Kausche, while on the topic of education, school shootings are becoming a more prevalent issue. What would you propose to best tackle this problem, and how would you suggest the state fund such a proposal?
Yeah, this is a very difficult question because every parent I talk to at the door says school safety is on top of their minds, especially with the school year starting. Lots of parents said, I'm worried about my kid going back to school. So here's why I stand on that. I oppose bringing more guns into schools, and I oppose arming teachers. Hold your applause. Administrators don't want it, school security officers don't want it, and so we should listen to them. There is currently the Georgia Senate Committee on School Safety. They will come out with a report soon, I hope. They've traveled through all the states asking schools and communities what they would do. So I would listen to what they suggest. But in addition to the physical improvement of the school, and by the way, I really don't want our schools to look like Fort Knox, because they need to be open-friendly learning environments. I would like to see more resource officers and smaller class sizes, and really emphasize the school community to work with the issue, and that's for now.
Thank you. Candidate Stewart, the question was, while on the topic of education, school shootings are becoming a more prevalent issue. What would you propose to best tackle this problem, and how would you suggest the state fund such a proposal?
Nothing is more important than protecting human life and knowing that you don't have to worry about your child when they go to school. I, unlike my opponent, if I had to make your school Fort Knox, the White House, the CIA, look like the NSA, I would do whatever I had to do to protect your children. So here is where I am. You cannot legislate evil by taking away the rights of law-abiding citizens. Gun control laws are not the answer. Here is what the answer is. The answer is for Georgia to fully fund the QBE formula so school boards can get the necessary money that they need to make their schools safe. Here's why. You do not want a legislator sitting in the Capitol deciding on school safety. They're not going to know the best about that. Every school is different. So what we can do is fund the formula, and I guarantee you, legislators in Atlanta do not know the best about making Northview High School safe, but I tell you who does. The Fulton County School Board and the leaders at Northview High School. We need to fund it, put the power in their hands, and support what they need to do to make the schools safe. I trust the local school boards, and I trust the school leaders to do that.
Candidate Kausche, your rebuttal, please.
I have none.
Candidate Stewart, this question will go to you. If you were granted the ability to push through one piece of legislation with no barriers, a guaranteed passage through the House and Senate, and the governor's signature, what would it be and why?
I would eliminate state income taxes. Here's why. There are 9 states who have eliminated state income taxes. I want hardworking Georgians to have a pay raise by taking home more of what they earn. And I want everybody to pay a fair tax. I am for the Georgia fair tax. That would take care of not just hardworking Georgians bearing the burden for everybody. We would get all of our citizens, our tourists, criminals, underground, anybody who comes through Georgia, paying a fair tax. And so that would be the one thing that I would want to focus on, because I want people to have more of their take-home pay. My husband and I, a couple of years ago, we sat down, we had both of our payroll checks, and we looked at all of our taxes on there. And this is what we figured. Monday and Tuesday, we work for the government. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we work for Tom and Kelly Stewart. That should not be. I want small, contained government, and I want you to have the freedom to have your money, and you to have the freedom to make the best decisions for your family. I would eliminate state income taxes.
Candidate Kausche, the question was, if you were granted the ability to push through one piece of legislation with no barriers, a guaranteed passage through the House and Senate, and the governor's signature, what would it be and why? Your response, please.
At this point, it would be the expansion of Medicaid.
Would you elaborate on that, please?
Again?
Okay, that's fine then.
Candidate Stewart, do you have a rebuttal?
I don't.
All right, so before we go to the closing statements, we would like to give each candidate an opportunity to ask the other candidate one question with a time limit of 2 minutes for an answer. You will want to keep...
Candidate Kausche, since Candidate Stewart got the last question, you will be allowed to ask Candidate Stewart a question of your own first.
Okay. So, you make eliminating taxes and low taxes, lowering tax burden for the citizens, a big part of your platform. But looking at your record in the city council, you actually voted to increase the millage rates and increase the tax burden on Johns Creek residents. Why should people trust you that you follow through now?
I have never voted to increase the millage rate, and I challenge you to go back and look at that. Here's what happens. When you set a millage rate, properties can fluctuate. The market can fluctuate. Think about 2008 and 2009 when the market tanked. So when you set a millage rate at the local city level, that's the standard. You have no control over what the market does. If the economy goes down, the city council cannot take credit for lowering your taxes. If the market goes up, the city council is not to blame because your taxes increased. So I have never changed the millage rate. That is standard. It's always what it has been. And I know Johns Creek has reduced that in the couple of years past. But before Johns Creek even started reducing that, the millage rate for Johns Creek was the lowest of any other North Fulton cities that we have. So I am a tax conservative, and I do not, you can't say that I have raised taxes by doing that. I have no control over the economy. I have the control over setting that standard, and then the market fluctuates around that millage rate. That's the real true story in what happened.
You may ask your question.
Thank you. What public service have you personally provided to the citizens of Johns Creek to show them that you are dedicated and committed to serving them without doing it under the banner of a political party?
Since I came here, I have been involved in the city council. I got involved in my community. I'm on the board of the HOA. I follow the city council. I've been regular at school board meetings. So I have been very much involved. I am not a career politician. This is my first time candidacy, as most of you will know. So I have not been in public service before, but I do believe that my background and my compassion and my passion for this city and the state and overall the community qualify me very well to represent the citizens of Johns Creek.
Please settle down.
Thank you, Candidate Kausche. And thank you both for participating this evening. Candidate Kausche, you will now present your closing statement.
Thank you again for the students and JCCA for hosting this debate. I really enjoyed it. I'm running because I want to serve you, and I'm very proud of the campaign I built, because one of the major things that is important to me is reaching out to the diverse community we represent. I'm working with a local team. I'm working with local volunteers. I have talked to thousands of people in Johns Creek, and what I hear from you is that you want someone who represents you with passion and works on solutions you care about. I'm not in it for myself. I'm very proud to say that most of my contributions I receive come from Johns Creek and Georgia. I'm not self-funding like my opponent. So I'm already walking the talk, making this election about you, and I will continue to do so in the future, and I'm looking forward to earning your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Kausche. Candidate Stewart, your closing statement, please.
Johns Creek's motto is "Be the exception." And I am committed to keeping us that. I am the one that has the leadership and the experience, and I'm committed to keeping us successful, strong, and safe. So we will always be the exception. You know, anyone can put up a website and say that they're for education and healthcare and transportation, but you have to have the experience and the know-how and the budget to understand how to do it. On my opponent's podcast, she states, "I'm learning by doing." This is not a position where it's on-the-job training. You need to know how to, when you go in on day one, you need to hit the ground running. And I'm the person that can do that. I'm the one that has represented us before. I have worked across party lines. On the Johns Creek City Council, I worked with Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and those that didn't vote. I am committed to working with everybody to accomplish what we need to accomplish in Johns Creek and move us forward. I think that we would all agree on one thing, that this has turned out to be a hostile political environment for this midterm election. You can see that just by watching the television. But I feel like where we are is so much more than Democrat versus Republican. Where we are is freedom versus socialism. It's we the people versus we the government.
Settle down.
And so we are at a very important crossroad, and you get to make the decision about our future, where we are going. One of the greatest honors of my life is that you gave me the opportunity to serve on the City Council, and I am asking you to vote for me November 6th and give me that opportunity to serve us and represent us again in the State House. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, candidates. Does everybody feel like that they learned something tonight about the candidates? And if we can get the Secretary of State ambassadors to please come up to the front. If you guys could wait just a second. Thank you all for coming out tonight. And I wanted to say that we are so amazed by the job that the Secretary of State ambassadors have done. Can you please give them a huge round of applause? Such a fantastic job. And on a personal note, if I'm ever in a dark alley, I am bringing Siraj with me. He's a tough guy. So we thank you all for coming out. Thank you to Student Leadership Johns Creek. Thank you to the candidates, Irene Sanders, Julie Fobb. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming out. Thank you to Brian Downey and Northview High School for hosting. Good night.